Truth here, and it's time for more Otaku Evolution. Be sure to like, subscribe, and contribute to my Patreon. I have something to confess. While I understand and appreciate its influence in manga and anime, I don't really like Fist of the North Star. Okay, shut up. I know that Fist of the North Star is a property juggernaut. A shonen classic written by a guy named Bronson and drawn by Tetsuo Ohara, it practically defined a generation of manga and anime stories, creating ripples that are still felt in the industry today. There's no disputing that. But I just don't care for it that much. I still wanted to cover part of the franchise, because there's just no ignoring it if you're an online anime reviewer. I wasn't about to rewatch and curate the entirety of the TV series, so I decided to do what a certain flat-capped fellow did and go for the 1986 alternate retelling of the original story in movie form. Our story begins with the nuclear annihilation of civilization as we know it. In the wake of this cataclysm, the survivors are desperate for relief, helpless against the droves of the cruel and ambitious. So, sort of like the way things are now, but with less flora and fauna and more Mad Max-style marauders. Who could possibly stand up to gangs of giant ripped psychopaths? Well, another giant ripped guy, but one who's good and can heal the mute and the blind. I didn't see him perform any water to wine kind of miracles, so I'm not going to declare him the Messiah, but he's pretty much the savior of the century's end. Or is he? I mean, he can certainly, punch really hard and fast.
When I fight, it's always to the death.
That's right. In fact, you're already dead.
Is that so?
Kenshiro here was once with his girlfriend Julia, before he was betrayed by an old friend named Shin, who took her and left him for dead. To add insult to injury, well, just more injury to injury, Ken's scheming brother Jaggy threw him into a canyon. But he gets better, and even picks up some friends in the form of Bat and Lin, two plucky kids who manage to remain somewhat relevant in the midst of all the macho standoffs. Lin especially is important, but I'll get to that later. He also meets Rei, a fighter who shreds his enemies. Kenshiro is out to reunite with Julia and avenge his loss to Shin, but first he has to take care of Jaggy. And then later still, he goes up against his brother Rao, who has ambitions to become greater than any of the schools of fighting, dubbing himself a king, and pretty much just being that for a lot of people. In the dub, it's a little unclear the difference between Jaggy and Rao's goals, with them both seeming to want to be the new Fist of the North Star, Kenshiro's rightful position. But it's only Jaggy who makes a claim to that role. Rao considers the position pointless. The dub takes some liberties. Oh, and spoilers, by the way.
Now you really made me mad, asshole.
We'll round up the others and destroy them as quickly as possible.
It's always great to see the cruel, dim-witted punks and misshapen bastards get what's coming to them by Ken's merciless hands. Even if you subscribe to the kind of heroism that doesn't kill, you have to admit there's a certain level of satisfaction in watching these pumped-up dopes who think their hot shit get completely obliterated when they've caused so much pain. And in that, I quite enjoy aspects of this movie. But here's the thing. Fist of the North Star is more than just punches and deformed enemies exploding into bloody pulp and footage that has been softened for content by Toei. It's also about the will to survive and renewal in the face of oblivion. This is embodied by Julia and Lin, especially the latter, who is typified as an extension of Julia's promise of a greener tomorrow. It is Lin that makes the seed that Julia clung to grow, and it is Lin who ultimately proves the true savior when she sways, though rather suddenly, Rao to abandon killing Ken and embrace the renewal of life he so utterly detested. Lin might be the actual hero of the movie, and that's pretty neat, actually. I only wish they had given her a little more screen time. But it's not like she can really fight. It's her purity that's the deciding factor. Kenshiro makes an okay secondary protagonist, though. Occasionally.
I love her, Ray. You can't imagine how much.
I believe that your separation from Julia must be linked to the ultimate fulfillment of your destiny. Fate's plan, in which we must all play a part. I have a hunch that your role's an important one. I wouldn't be surprised if the world needs you, even more than you need Julia.
Now, I've been pretty positive so far, so the question remains, why don't I like Fist of the North Star much? Well, because for a largely action series, the action kind of sucks. Let's face it, folks, Fist of the North Star is not known for its well-choreographed, involved fighting scenes. This movie especially shows mostly completely one-sided butchering. Kenshiro doesn't really struggle with an opponent until he fights Rao at the conclusion. When he normally fights, he just does flurries of punches with their delayed effects. It's how he defeats Jaggy. He doesn't have to do much to a half-dead Shin by the time he gets to him. What an enormous disappointment that scene is. The only truly entertaining combat in this entire feature is Kenshiro versus Rao. And that starts off really weird in a DBZ-ish clash of ki before it gets to the really cool brutality. Look, I get it. Fist of the North Star, especially in the movie, leans heavily into the survival aspect at time, waxing philosophical about how best to mete out justice in a world without any rules and such. The movie even ends with Kenshiro losing track of Julia and traveling the world, finding the fruits of her labor but never her. As the flat-capped reviewer remarked, there's something there about losing sight of what's important, blinded by the violence that has consumed him. But it's really just window dressing to all the brutality and, at least to me, poor compensation for the lack of variety of the action in this movie. The action we get can still be entertaining, sure, but in sort of a wacky, cheesy way, in a manner that makes you chuckle. But that's not the kind of way they were going for. The movie is grand and theatrical and plays itself straight. So why couldn't it give us better action? Like I said, it has one worthwhile fight, and that's the battle between Kenshiro and Rao at the end. And Kenshiro doesn't even win! He does go the distance like Rocky in the first Rocky, at least. But man, does Rao's sudden mind change just destroy the momentum. And you just know Rao went right back to doing bad things when he left the battlefield. The dude killed Ray! He totally got away with it! Whatever, man. It's still kind of a fun movie if you can look past its lack of action variety and the baffling ending. It has a lot of bombast and grandiosity that makes it somewhat endearing. It just isn't much more than that. Honestly, parodies of the series are better than the real thing.
While wandering in the wastelands, Excel learned this lethal technique. Here's a taste of it.
Such a bad game, Abby!
Now you're a pretty girl character!
Well, this was a short video. I can't see the next one being particularly long either. Join me next time when I take one last look at Pat Labor with a second OVA. Until then, see ya!
So, with all due respect, I'll let you be the one to cut his head off.
That's quite an honor, but I'd hate for you to miss all that fun on my account. You sure about this?
Hey, what are friends for, right? Wait a minute. I was talking about the other guy.
Silly me. What a foolish mistake.
I got a splitting headache.
Oh?